What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Triple Play Fantasy YouTube channel. If you're watching us on Twitter, Facebook, welcome back in to more Triple Play Fantasy content. D. Mendy here, joined by my friend across country, Kevin Coleman, who doesn't have his Twitter handle in here, which I just realized that right now, which is very wild. He's at @theboys_22. How's it going?
I'm doing good, man. I'm just, living the dream out here in California. It's been cold as shit, and I'm excited. We're getting close to the mock drafts. We're getting close to the draft. I'm excited about good fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, a month away from the actual NFL draft.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been wondering where these guys are going to go. Guys have been shifting up and down boards, especially post-combine. Have a lot more data now to look at, and I'm getting excited. And I'm not even a Devy guy, but I'm getting excited for all these guys and seeing their landing spots. I couldn't think of a better way to do this than when you suggested doing a rookie mock. It's like that's the best way to talk about these guys and their values before where they're going to land. So we recruited some of the brightest minds in the fantasy football space. And as you'll see, as I share on screen, we have our sleeper mock draft. We've got 4 rounds of our rookie mock here. And you'll see these 3 guys along with many others selected here. So without further ado, first pick off the board from Christian Crespo. You made a noise, and it's Breece Hall. And this is super flex, keep in mind. So I took the number 2 pick specifically so I could get Breece Hall. But I will happily take Malik Willis.
Look at that.
Did that play out how you thought it would the first 3?
Yeah, the Breece Hall 101 is really taking some steam, and it's something that we talked about in the Debbie Royale a few months ago that like running back could be there. I still go Malik though. Like I honestly, I would go Malik in that spot just because I think upside and super flex, that's where the value's at, and that's kind of where I would go here. And I think that's kind of I think that's where you should go there. I like that pick there. I think that's good value.
Yeah, I mean, I was expecting to get Hall with number 2, and again, I'm happily taking Malik Willis there in the super flex format. Now we were doing P2W, our friend Nick, and the guys at Dynasty Sons were putting together a first round mock super flex similar to what we're doing right now with Sleeper. And there was 2 quarterbacks taken in the 12 picks that we did. There was Malik Willis taken up top, and then not Breece Hall. Sam Howell was taken at the 111 from Nick. Now, as you look at this first round, how many quarterbacks do you feel you'd be comfortable taking in the first round of a super flex rookie draft?
Yeah, so I just did one for football guys. I think I did. I had 3. So I think 3 is a good number for right now, depending before we see draft capital and all that stuff. So like Malik Willis, and obviously the other guys haven't gone yet, but Malik, and I think Ritter is up there, and I think Corral is up there. I know a lot of guys like Pickett, but I'm not really a Pickett guy. But I think it's 3. Here, I'll take care of Alex right now. I'll take care of it.
Okay, so you have 3. So then who do you have a definite 3 in your mind of who? Obviously Malik Willis, but then who are the next 2 that you think should go in the first round?
I mean, me personally, I think it's Desmond Ritter from Cincinnati, and I think it's Corral right now. I mean, obviously we're going to have to see draft capital in there. I think Howe could maybe sneak his way into the back end depending on if he gets. He just had 32 teams show up for his pro day, so he's going to be sought after, and he had a really good pro day. But to me, I think Ritter has upside from that. I think that he's not a great quarterback, but I think he's a good fantasy quarterback. And if he lands somewhere in the top 20, I think he has to get drafted in the first round. My guy Sycor just drafted 108. He likes Ritter as well. So I think Ritter would be a good option in the top 10. I think he's going to be there.
Yeah, he definitely seems like he's got the most upside of anybody outside Malik Willis, just from the someone I've looked into this offseason at this quarterback class.
Yeah,
I feel like Sam Howell, I'm really down on him as he's taken by our buddy FF Shane. I mean, I've seen comparisons to Baker Mayfield. Doesn't seem like there's anything to me that's super special about him. I know people point that he lost like his entire offensive weapons in his senior season. That's why his numbers went crazily down from his junior year. But there's just something about him. Like I get Josh Rosen vibes from him, Kev.
Okay, well, he's not Josh Rosen, but what I would say is I think he has elite arm strength. Like I think he does have. And you'll notice here the quarterbacks just went off the board here at the end. I mean, that's value, but I think what you'll see here with these guys, and I'll talk about how in a second, when you have at the 108 to 111, it's guys that they don't know what to do right now with that quarterback position. Like they're just kind of throwing darts now where they're at. I think that, I think Hal can be good. I really do. I think that he can kind of separate himself a little bit. I think he's a good NFL quarterback. Now, I think his fantasy upside is limited. I know people say he's a dual threat. He's not a dual threat. He ran a lot in college. That doesn't always equate to the NFL. I think he has functional athleticism, which can allow him to sit in plays. But I think Hal could be the best quarterback. I just don't know from a fantasy perspective. He's a QB2, right? Like, I think that's kind of what you're looking at. So I do think that there's some step backs there, but it all depends on draft capital, because there are some people that think he's not going to get drafted until like the second or third round. If that's the case, then yeah, then we're really talking about that.
Yeah, you and Psychwar apparently are connected. So stop giving away my picks. You also, I find it kind of interesting here as we look at the draft board, how it played out. You said the 4 straight quarterbacks off the board there. And then we have George Pickens, Chris Olave, Isaiah Spiller, and then Rachaad White, who I'm a big fan of. And he goes on podcasts that I'm a big fan of as well. But I got to ask you, are you kind of surprised that Spiller was able to slip this far and that Kenneth Walker was, I know it was auto picked up there, but do you think there's that much of a difference between Walker to Spiller?
So even though it's technically auto pick, I did pick for Alex. I think Walker goes there. I really do. And I don't think it's that big of a difference. I think the quarterbacks pushed it. So depending on your league that you're in, I could see that definitely happening in terms of like where you're going at. But I think too with these guys and what you're looking at, Spiller just didn't have a great pro day. I mean, he ran a 4.62, 4.63, somewhere in there. He looks okay, and I think people are a little worried about him. I think I mocked Walker at the 106, I think, in a recent mock that I did for Football Guys. I think I had Spiller at the 110. So I'm not as far away from them. But again, with these quarterbacks, they always will push talent in Superflex. I think Spiller's okay. I think that it's going to be interesting to see what his draft capital is, because if he doesn't go early day 2, then I think people are going to get worried. Walker's going to go early day 2, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, is it fair to say the only one that might go in the first round is Breece Hall at this point, or as it stands today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only one that goes in the first round would be Breece, if he goes in the first round. And I like the spot right after the first with the Jets. They have those 2 picks in the second. I think maybe he goes to the Jets.
Yeah, I could see that. So as we see, let's kind of move over to some wide receivers. Garrett Wilson was the first one taken off the board. Then you took Drake London, then goes Treylon Burks. I put out a poll on Twitter today, and I said, what wide receiver is Treylon Burks off the board? Is he the first wide receiver off the board? Is he the second or third? Is he the 4th or the 5th? Or does he go after the 5th wide receiver? Going early into the draft offseason, he seemed like the no doubt about it number 1, at least from what I saw in fantasy circles. And now he's kind of slipping. I've seen people ranking him as like the number 5 wide receiver, putting Garrett Wilson, Drake London, even Williams out of Alabama, and some, Chris Olave, George Pick. Like I've seen like a mix of guys sometimes going ahead of him. Where do you have Treylon Burks going?
Okay, so isn't that funny how it happens? Treylon Burks, wide receiver 1, no doubt, in November, and now all of a sudden the testing comes out and people are like, oh wait, maybe he's not there. I think that when you're looking at Treylon Burks, I think that I saw it on your tweet today, but I did see someone say like he's someone that some fantasy people like more than probably the NFL. And I think that's a very valid thing. I think Chris Olave probably will get drafted ahead of Treylon Burks. Like, I do think that some of these guys that we're looking at here, I don't know about Pickens, but I do think London, Wilson, Williams, and Olave will probably go ahead of Burks in the draft. And now you're talking about, okay, where's he going to fall then? Because those later round picks could be interesting. I would put him where he went. I would probably take Jamison ahead of Burks, and if I can do it on my teams. I'm a little worried about Burks. I have London ahead of him now, which I didn't before. But I like everybody on the record to know that I had Garrett Wilson as my wide receiver 1 since last year, and I have not changed. So I'm not one of those flippy flopper guys.
No, you've been holding true to that.
Yes, I have.
I do find the next tier of wide receivers really interesting. You took Dotson. I think Christian Watson is very intriguing. In my gut, I think the Chiefs I wouldn't be shocked to see them select him with one of their 2 picks at the back end of the first. And I've also heard that they're very impressed with Sky Moore as well. And, David Bell, also not a too shabby. This next tier of wide receivers, and John Menchie, of course, if it wasn't for the injury he suffered during the national championship, he would be up higher than he's going right now as well. I'm curious, in this next tier of wide receivers, do you have somebody that's your favorite?
Probably Sky Moore, to be honest. I probably should have drafted Sky Moore where I drafted Dotson. If I could go back, I probably would do that. I do like the idea of like Watson too, depending on where he goes. If he can sneak in there at that like Chiefs spot or wherever he goes there. I like Sky Moore though. I think that's a good pick there. Mechie's okay. Mechie's okay.
Didn't realize it was my pick, and now I'm just gonna.
Now you're struggling here.
I'm just gonna take the top one. Just want to run out of
I
time.
do want to talk about Kyron Williams going at the 209. That's a little early for me. My boy Shane picked that pick, but I don't know about that, man. I have Kyron. I actually had Kyron in my last mock going to the 402, so I had him as a 4th round value. Bad pro day. Not fast, didn't look good. I heard that the only really strength of his is a good pass protector, which isn't really good for fantasy. Like, I don't think Kyron's a 2nd round pick anymore. I think he's a 3rd or 4th round pick. And to me, he's a 4th round pick right now.
I wouldn't be shocked in the NFL draft if he goes day 3 now, too. Which is, I mean, you see some running backs succeed in that, but it's not too many. And like you said, if the skills are already pretty much pass protector and that's it, it's a very scary proposition to think that he's going to have any type of fantasy relevance. There's plenty of guys I think that are going after him. I like as well that I could see going. As we look how the board's still playing out here, we saw I took Justin Ross just because I wanted to take somebody. Wendell Robinson goes. He was, if I remember, more undersized than he was talked about before his combine.
Just a little bit.
So who knows what that's going to do for his actual draft stock. I want to bring up, because I know you just selected Tyler Beatty for Alex, and he's somebody that I feel like also early on in the draft season, I kind of saw like people were kind of, but recently I've seen a couple people, really smart people plugged in, whether it's their prospect models or just people that watch film, they actually seem like they really like him as one of those late round guys. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on him. Do you think he's somebody that could be one of those sleeper running backs?
Well, at this point, David, everybody is a sleeper now, right? I think I've seen every single person say someone's a sleeper. I will say I like Beatty from the start. I have him at the 211. That's where I value him at. So if you can get him in the mid-3rd, I think that's a good spot. He's 199 pounds, which is always a question mark, but he did carry the load at the SEC level. The thing with these guys, when you look at these running backs with Beatty, I would stay away from Algier. I don't want Algier at all. Brian Robinson's like 30 years old already, so I'm out. Damian Pierce is good. I like him. Zamir is good. I think that's really good value that you saw there. Like, for these guys in these 3rd and 4th rounds that you're searching for, find somewhere where they're going to get value, where they're going to score, and maybe where they can kind of be a starter, like a plug-in starter. Like Larry Rountree kind of did last year, but then he didn't take that opportunity when Eckler got hurt. Like, that's what you're looking for there. I like Beatty, a good pass catcher, all that. If you watch the show, when we talk about the Debbie Royale, we've been on Beatty. We said Beatty is better than Kyron Williams for the last 3 months. And we really believe that. I do. I think he's going to be a better prospect.
Yeah, he's definitely been talked about more. And I mean, Pierre Strong also was one of those names he has not been picked yet, but he was somebody that's kind of rising up a little bit. As well as some other guys that we'll continue to probably see more of their names over the next month as, they're, you'll hear stories and, pro days and all that stuff come around here. As we're getting ready to start our 4th round of our draft here, Kev, I got to ask, is there one team so far that's been standing out to you as far as their selections? You're like, this dude is literally hit after hit with their picks.
I was gonna say Jacob, but then he selected Rondale Robinson, who's like 5'2". So I'm gonna stay away from Jacob's draft. But yeah, Christian's done a good job. First pick there, and Hall, Olave, I think is good value in the 2nd. I mean, I think that's really good in terms of where he's probably going to get drafted. Zamir White is legit. I think when you're looking at what he can do, I think he can score in the red zone. You're looking for a touchdown dependent fantasy option, but in the 3rd round, that's not bad. And then Isaiah Likely, I like that. A little pun there, but I think that he could do well. I think that he's one of those guys that fits well in the NFL. So I like Christian's draft. I think he's done a pretty good job of kind of selecting those guys around there.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think he a little shocker with the first pick, but it shaped out pretty well. I was able actually to get Olave in the mock draft I mentioned that Nick and the Dynasty Sons guys did, that I got him at the 110, and it was because I had a lot of other guys obviously ahead that didn't fall to me, but I felt pretty good about that. And the fact that he got him here in the 2nd round because of that QB run, I think was even better value. So
yeah, if you can get Olave in the 2nd round, I mean, that's a cash draft pick. I mean, it is what it is. I do like Craig's pick at the end of the 3rd, Jelani Woods. he was someone that was going undrafted recently. And then now, I mean, he got some plug. I talked about him at the East West Shrine Bowl for Fantasy Pros when I was over there. He's a big kid, 6'7", big monster guy. Like, I think that's a good value too in the third round. And those guys. I would not have taken Weidermeyer. Jacob took Weidermeyer.
I was about to ask about that. I feel like his stock like plummeted.
I mean, he could go undrafted. I mean, the kid didn't he ran over a 5 flat 40, not athletic. Like, he'll probably get drafted late, but he's not a fantasy asset in my opinion.
So you like, obviously, Isaiah Likely ahead of him. Is there any other sleeper tight ends that you think I'm sure there might be one or two more that come off the board here?
I like these guys. I'm going to take one right now just because he's not here, so I don't really care. But Dulcich from UCLA, I think that he could be a value. He definitely had the usage and the volume on the UCLA's offense. I like Greg. I think, again, athlete at that tight end position. Cole Turner, my guy Cole Turner from Nevada. I've been on him for a couple years now. Big red zone target. I like him to go somewhere where it would be red zone kind of value, especially with former wide receiver turned tight end. I think those two guys are someone I'm looking at in the fourth round. Definitely more upside in Weidermeyer.
Yeah, again, stock is plummeting. We're closing out these last few picks of this fourth round here. And what I like about these rookie drafts is they're nice and quick, super easy. They take 20 minutes or so, but you can really get a good picture of the rookie landscape, as we said before the draft. Just kind of get a sense of where people are valuing these guys. So when you do have your actual drafts with your rookies in it, you can kind of get a sense of, hey, like, this might be somewhat of how it falls when the real draft comes, and I need to be able to know when to pick my guys. So do you think any other quarterbacks go here, Kev, or after these
No.
6, that's it?
That's it. I mean, you might Baylor Zappi's out there, and I love the kid, but he's not an NFL guy. Caleb Ellaby is someone that I like, but again, when you're looking at Caleb Ellaby, he's a project. There's a lot of project guys in here. So I don't see anybody there. Perry looks okay at certain times, but I don't think you draft anyone there. You just wait on the waiver wire and see where they're at. Like, after Strong, I wouldn't waste a pick on a quarterback. It's just not worth it.
Give me your top 5 quarterbacks as it stands today ranked for fantasy.
For fantasy? Okay,
yes.
So I'm going to be going on a show tomorrow for this, so I actually just have it up.
That's good hosting by me.
When I'm looking at fantasy wise, right now I have Willis at my 1, I have Ritter at my 2, Corral at 3, Howe at 4, and Kenny Pickett at 5.
Small hands Pickett.
Yeah, I'm out of Pickett. I'm not touching Pickett.
I wonder where he goes ultimately, because
it's going to be the Panthers, David, because they're stupid.
You think?
Yes.
That would be just a Panthers type of move for sure. But all picks have been made. Kind of get now a view of the draft board of these top 48 rookie picks here. Any last minute thoughts here, Kev, on just how this played out? Any big surprises for you? Any values or anything to comment on the board?
Yeah, I think the board is. I think people did well. When you're looking at kind of the first 6. I will say this: I think at the 109 is a clear tier drop. So when you're looking at this board, I think the first 8 picks are going to be what you see. I think it's going to be Willis, Hall, Wilson, London, Burks, Walker, Williams, and then it kind of depends if someone's going to reach on a quarterback at the 108. I do think that someone will, like you saw Ritter there, which is a good pick, which I like. Then you're looking at, okay, after that, there's a clear drop. I think Olave is there and Pickens are there, but there's question marks, right? Spiller is there. I think there's ways. I think Rashad White might jump ahead of Spiller in some rookie drafts because, hey, what if he goes to Atlanta? What if he goes to some of these places that you see, like, hey, they're going to get the volume? But I will say, like, my tiers right now, I was looking at it the other day. 109, I feel like, is a big tier break. 204-ish, 205 is a pretty big tier break. And that's where you kind of want to get into. After that, I think that you're really looking at a lot less talent, less value. And that's how I look at it. I do have some things for you, but you can go ahead and give us your thing, and I'm going to flip it on you for a second.
Are you sure? I was going to let you keep the floor, Kev.
Oh, okay, let's flip it. All right, let's look at the 101. I'm gonna play a little game with you because this is what I did in my last value thing. So at the 101, would you rather have the 101 look at either Willis or Hall, or would you rather have Jalen Hurts?
Call me a glutton for punishment, but I don't know. I feel like I kind of would want the Hall or Willis pick because I feel like Hurts, we've seen the best of him. I don't think he's going to get any better. And I think the worst case scenario could happen where if he plays as bad in real life as he could, that he gets benched and he's no value for you. But Willis or Hall, I mean, they both have a lot more promise, I think, coming out than Hurts does. So I think I would take the draft pick. What about you?
I probably, I'd probably take the draft pick. It's close though. Like it's close, right? Like so, what I
Yeah.
did on my last article is I gave a pick value for every position for like the 101 through the 112, and I said, hey, who would you rather have? And just basically trying to give it out there. So I gave Hertz as the 101, Joe Mixon at the 101, AJ Brown or Mark Andrews. Would you flip the 101 for any of those guys? And I think it's a good barometer instead of just writing a mock draft and saying, hey, like, okay, would you give these guys up? I think Hertz is the perfect 101 though, because I think Willis is there's a lot of similarities here in how much you trust them. And before we know where they land, and we don't know, but Hertz is such a crazy asset to me. It's just interesting to see like, where would you go? So I got another one. So the 102, then let's flip it. Would you rather have the 102 or Matthew Stafford? Putting you on the spot.
Oh man. I mean,
It's tough.
I mean, if I have a win now roster, then I would rather have Stafford. If I'm not anywhere near contending, then I would take the 102. I know that's kind of both sides of the coin.
That's all right.
What do you think?
No, I think Stafford. I would take Stafford, depending on the format. If I'm close, middle, whatever. If I'm drafting at the 102 for a reason, like let's say my team is trash, then yeah, I'll take Hall or Brees or one of those guys. I might even take Wilson, depending on how far away my team is. I will say I think some people draft running backs way too early when their team's not ready to compete, and in 2 years when their team is ready to compete, then it's too late, and now you have a failing asset like a running back on 3 years. I'm out on that. But I think Stafford is an interesting kind of. I would grab maybe Stafford there. The 102 with these question marks, especially if Hall goes 101. If like you're in a draft and Hall is 101 and you're sitting there like, do I take a shot on Willis's upside or I take Stafford, established guy, probably going to be there for 2 or 3 years? I think Stafford would be the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I do think that Willis is like that, especially with how he's being played up now. Everybody's showing like his arm strength and people are comparing him to, I'm trying to remember the quarterback they did where they said they basically played against bad competition and, did well. And then they played against good competition in college and they struggled, but then they ended up making the leap to the pros and they were fine. I can't remember which quarterback it was. It's going to kill me, but I mean, he seems like he's got the tools and he seems like he's a good kid, which kind of gives me excitement for the upside he could give you there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's definitely, these are really good thinking questions. So I don't know how long it took you to figure out each of these specific ones.
You don't want to know. It took me forever.
They're good, bro. Like anytime you're bored on a date with your wife or something, like bring up these questions. These are good, making them think questions. I like it. On that note, though, I think we're gonna wrap up this 4-round draft here. And I forgot to check the comments.
We have a good one out here. Biggest thing for me is, are you sold? No, not necessarily as like a quarterback perspective, but in a fantasy value perspective, here's how I'll lay it out. Trevor Lawrence had one of the worst years in fantasy football history last year. I mean, he was absolutely awful. David knows this. And his value still, so he was QB1 last year in the rookie drafts. He was getting drafted around QB12 in startup drafts. He is still getting drafted around QB 10 to 12 in startup drafts, even though he just had one of the worst seasons historically. So if you're looking at Willis's value, he's going to get drafted as a 101 or 102 in Superflex. He probably has insulated value for a year. So why not just take the upside on that? And you still have that value built in, even if he kind of falters a little bit, maybe doesn't play, because the value is never going to really change with these guys in the first 2 years, especially that quarterback position. And especially with his athletic upside, that's how I look at Willis. Hall should be okay. But if Hall is David Montgomery, his value is going to pretty much kind of decline from there. And it's okay. It's there. But again, you can probably flip Willis for more as you go forward. That's kind of how I look at Willis in terms of his value. The values are always insulated the first 2 years for these top quarterbacks, just because that's just how the market value is.
Yeah. And I think it's a really good reason that you kind of brought that in, the fact that fantasy and real life, like, are you sold on Willis for fantasy? I mean, is worst case scenario right now that he's like another Jalen Hurts, incredible rushing floor and somebody that maybe might not be too accurate, but he's going to give you fantasy points? Because we've learned from Tim Tebow that you don't necessarily have to be a real good life quarterback to be able to be a good fantasy quarterback. So I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kev. I feel like him being a good fantasy quarterback, assuming he just plays, almost seems like a lock at this point with his rushing ability. Is going to be a question of if if he's going to be a good real life one. And Christian's saying a la Trey Lance.
But it's true. Like, I like the best with it, but it's true. Like Trey Lance, Justin Fields, all these guys still have that. You're looking at Trey Lance right now. I mean, he gets drafted I saw him get drafted at the end of the first, like QB8. He played 2 games last year. Yeah, averaged 20 points, whatever the fact may be. But I think it could be there. And I understand your perspective here. I know he went to Liberty. They had no O-line. I think it's interesting, but it's a true value, like a home run call. Like, where are you going to go? I like to go ceiling, though, because I think it opens up your flexibility as a dynasty manager. If you go floor all the time, I think it limits you. So, like, I'll take a swing on Willis. I think Hall, too, though. Like, if you have the first 2 picks, you're right there. Hall is going to be one of those guys that has insulated value, too. I think he's okay. Like, if he gets drafted in the first round, especially even then, if he goes to a volume place, look at Devonte Williams. Devonte Williams is getting drafted as dynasty running back, too, and he hasn't even had a full season where he's been the guy yet, and Melvin Gordon might come back. So those 2 guys, to me, are pretty safe. Wilson as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll see values change, as we mentioned up at the top of the show here, too. Like, if you see people were talking about Breece Hall going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before they re-signed Leonard Fournette. Like, can you imagine the amount of hype he would have gotten if they had brought him with their draft pick and didn't bring back Fournette? Yeah. Like, it would have been through the roof. Or, you know, if someone like Rachaad White, who I think ends up going to the Cardinals, is my prediction. Like, if he goes to the Cardinals and something happens, and people are going to be drafting him maybe first off the board, depending on the situation, because they'd be like, hey, James Conner hasn't shown he's healthy. I think he is the best path to getting actual work. He stepped into the Chase Edmonds role right away. And like, this is going to change so much over the next month. But again, like, that's kind of what we have to do now. Just assess their values, assess how they are as prospects. And then as situations and roles open up, then we can start saying like, okay, this guy has a better path to being fantasy relevant right now, or maybe down the road to where, if you have a dynasty team where you're not ready to win now, you can take a chance to wait on guys. Like, I'm thinking like even just like I know Van Jefferson hasn't played out yet, but he's kind of someone that pops in my mind if he went to a place where you knew he wasn't going to do anything much in his first season. And he was getting some work towards the end of last year. So like, that's kind of an example that popped in my mind of somebody that situation can be very dependent on if you're going to draft him or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to look at value. And if you're rebuilding, like you said, a lot of guys are going to be rebuilding at that stage. Take Willis if he's there, then you can have value piece. You can flip him before once his hype comes up, once he goes to camp. Like, there's things you can maneuver around, and I think that's where you go. But overall, I think this is a good barometer of like these are smart people that are in this draft, and I appreciate all of them. And you can kind of see what these are the first 12. I mean, minus one of those quarterbacks is probably going to get out of there because of draft capital. You're looking at Olave and Spiller in that area, but you're looking at the first 14, 15 picks right there. That should be your first round and first 3 picks of your second round. And that's kind of where I see them kind of falling.
Yeah. And our buddy here said he's got a rebuilding team. So he's got a lot of picks he can use to rebuild. And there are some good assets you can get with those picks in the draft here. But that's going to do it for this episode. We wanted to keep it just under 30 minutes here, and we're going to be able to do that. If you guys enjoy these types of mock drafts, Kevin and I took a little break from them, but if you enjoy it, please make sure you like the video. Please make sure you're subscribed if you're not already, and leave a comment below if you want us to do more rookie mocks, or you would like to just see other mocks in general, because we'll do them if people have ideas of ones they would like to see. So that's going to be it for us. Kev, what would you like to say to the people before we get out of here?
Just have a good week, get some sleep, and drink more water. Always drink water, guys.
Dr. Kevin. You got to listen to him. That's what he says. So, all right, guys, we'll see you guys in the next one.